Dear ladies and gentlemen, you are welcoming to our next Aviation Arena webinar. We are doing this together, Aviation Advocacy and Aviation Arena, the Zero Emission Aviation webinar. Today, our guest is Mr. Ivo Boscarol, the founder and the president of Pipistrel company. But I will not tell you more about this. I will let this to Andrew later on and also to Mr. Boscarol. I'm Tom Gavazzi, I'm owner of Aviation Arena, and together with Andrew, we are doing the new Blue Sky Talks webinars about innovations in the aviation industry. I will just give you a few technical informations. So we are recording this webinar, and tomorrow you will receive the record of this webinar, and you can watch it also later, or you can share it whatever you like after this webinar. Our webinar will be around 45 minutes. You can ask some questions and comments through the Q&A and through the chat if you like. So this is all from my side. I wish you the pleasant and useful time on this webinar. So Andrew, the air is yours.
Tom, thank you very much. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. As Tom mentioned, this is a Blue Sky Talk. We have decided to start this series of conversations around what the future might hold. That's not a question about COVID or not COVID and those sorts of things. It's where does the technology take us? What is the future of aviation? Let's assume that eventually we get through COVID, and then what are we going to look like? What are the challenges we're going to have to face? What are the ways we're going to have to be different? And if you asked me to find the perfect person to use as our launch platform for a conversation about blue sky aviation, a conversation about blue sky thinking, a conversation about blue sky innovation, I could not imagine a better person than Ivo Boscarol and his company Pipistrel. I just cannot imagine that there is such a person out there. I'm going to introduce Ivo in the very shortest possible terms, because if I listed every award he's ever won, if I listed everything he's ever done, this would be a 1 hour, 45-minute conversation, not a 45-minute conversation. It's fair to say that he's won awards for all over the world, from NASA, from the Royal Aeronautical Society. He's been nominated as the Aviator of the Year. He's won prizes for the FAI, the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. He's been a sports aviator, a glider pilot. He was one of the people that introduced the entire category of ultralight flying. He's been committed to flying his entire life and is continuing to work at really what can only be described as the very, very cutting edge of aviation, of blue sky aviation, if you like. Not only blue sky, but also quiet skies, it's fair to say. So with those very short words, I do recommend you look up Ivo's full CV. It's really, it's humbling, frankly. It's a really interesting background. He started in aviation, of course, in what was then Yugoslavia, what is now Slovenia, and has basically not looked backwards since, I think it's fair to say. Ivo, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your time. Welcome to a Blue Sky Talk. I hope that you are well.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to all the audience listening and watching today this talk. I hope will be interesting for all of you. I hope it will contribute to a cleaner tomorrow sky. I'm one of the believers that we can still do something in this matter. And I believe it's a duty of everybody who can do something to contribute to the cleaner atmosphere. It must do it. So also such webinars help to this. And I'm really thankful to you that you are organizing such webinars.
Oh, it's completely a pleasure to learn more about Pipistrel, let me assure you. I'm really interested though, Ivo, let's start. I'm really interested that you talk about cleaner emissions and cleaner skies, because that wasn't your first motivation for getting into the sorts of aircraft that you build, was it?
Well, I started in former Yugoslavia with so-called trikes or Rogala wings. You know, at that time this was forbidden because it was not legal. And then later we modified this wing. We put a small engine on it, and because of this, we have seen a motivation that we can do the aviation affordable. At that time, was very hard to catch the aircraft or to become a pilot, because if you was not supposed to be a military pilot, was almost not possible. And with this alternative, we made the aviation affordable almost to everybody. And of course, we modified the car engines, and the devices were very, very noisy, and the people were complaining already at that time. But on the other side, we had a big advantage because we were using car fuel, so it was much easier to find it than aviation fuel. So I said, my motivation must be that what we are doing, what we are designing, what we are producing is affordable. It's don't need a lot of energy, that with the same amount of fuel, we can fly longer distances, we can fly faster, higher, faster. And in the case of engine failure, it must behave like a glider, that it's not a catastrophe if the engine fails. And of course, the produced noise as a result must be lower. At that time, I was the craziest aircraft designer in the world, because fuel was cheap, noise was not important. But nowadays it is. But this 30 years of experience, we earned so much that we can fly with 300 liters from Chile to Easter Islands. You know, it's 4,500 kilometers over the water, or we can fly over Himalaya, and we can fly in the way that if you don't see the aircraft in the air, you don't know that something is in the air. And that's our motivation from the beginning.
So your motivation, I mean, I read somewhere that one of the areas you got into effectively was stealth aircraft that people couldn't hear, and consequently they were able to do surveillance and those sorts of things much more easily. And I'm really interested in the interface between noise and emissions. Most people, until 5 years ago, maybe, I think aircraft noise was the big issue for the aviation industry, wasn't it?
Well, it is always was an issue, but people are every day more sensitive. And noise is also an emission, you know.
Well, indeed, good point, yes.
Yeah, imagine that in Europe, we have more than 100, about 110 airports, as we know, in Austria, in France, Switzerland, Germany, where the training for PPL training, let's say for pilot, it's forbidden during the weekend, because people are complaining about the noise. And who has time to do training during the week? Nobody.
Of course, it's
with our electric aircraft, which is now EASA type certified also for training, we are bringing back not only flight but also training in populated area. We are not disturbing any more people, and that's the correct result. That you are doing what you need, what you like, but not on the shoulders or damaging the one who don't care about aviation. You know, it must be synchronized. We must live in a kind of synergy, and that's also later on when we will discuss on bigger passenger aviation. This must be the goal. Fortunately, in last years, yes. We are everybody is investing a lot of efforts to make the flight cheaper, to reduce the emissions, also to reduce the noise. Now we also have better mechanisms to do it. But yes, we must be very strict and follow these directions.
Right. But so at the moment, I mean, I'd love to follow the path of your company from making ultralights to now making, as you say, type certified training aircraft that have 2 seats. And I know you've got plans to build bigger aircraft than that. But at the moment, your company makes the same aircraft, but one of it is fuel powered and the other one is electric. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, this was our motivation. You know, electrifying one aircraft is not so simple that people simply think that you just change the engine. No, the electric propulsion is still not very efficient, the complete propulsion, you know. Electric propulsion in this moment can replace 100% the engine on motor gliders and on training aircraft. Tomorrow, maybe on city taxis. But the energy density and all the problems connected to this are still not offering us to use the electric propulsion everywhere. But for training is fine, because the lesson takes 45 minutes, and then when you change the crew, you do briefing, debriefing, then you recharge the aircraft and you go again in the air. And
so you recharge the aircraft by plugging it into the electric power?
Yes, like a cell phone. As we had already a very, very efficient trainer, the SW121, which burn a really small amount of energy, we have seen a challenge to electrifying it. First of all, because the structure certification was mainly used also for the electric one, so the certifying process was faster, and because we already know how the people understand or accept our aircraft, and we made the same cockpit. So the pilot don't feel the difference when making the initial patterns on electric aircraft, and then to go to advanced trainer, which can be also, let's say, long range, intentional spins, night VFR, autopilot. So the motivation was to make pilot friendly cockpit that the pilot don't need to be electric engineer, what was before, you know, and this is important.
Right. Okay. So at the moment you're using, look, I'm guessing here, lithium-ion batteries, that are sort of, as you said, like a cell phone. Where do you see the future for electric batteries? Do you think we're going to move more into hydrogen and things like that, or are we just waiting for the famous breakthrough in new battery technology?
Well, it depends of the need of the electric aircraft. As mentioned, for the motor gliders, also for the trainer aircraft, you can go also with batteries. The one who expect bigger endurance in or double or triple energy density in few years, it's wrong. Unfortunately, the chemistry is not ready to make so big steps. What we are earning now are the cycles, that the batteries can be recharged more times. We are earning also a shorter charging time, what offer more sorties with the aircraft. But if you like to fly nowadays with the aircraft over the Atlantic or a few hundred kilometers, the energy density of batteries is not the correct solution. That we know this. That's why we are focusing on this mini liner around 20 seat with the hybrid technology with hydrogen fuel cells. Hydrogen is a good compromise because it offers a real emission-free propulsion. Batteries are not really emission-free because the production is not climate neutral, I would say. But hydrogen, yes, you bring the hydrogen with you in the tank, and you take the oxygen from the atmosphere, and you produce the electricity you need, and the only emission is clean water. It's so clean that you must add a little bit of salt if you like to drink it, you know. And as production of the hydrogen is every day cheaper, because the wind turbines in the oceans during the night, when the need for the electricity is lower, they can produce hydrogen. It seems like a good solution at the moment, for longer flights. And also the storage, it's every day, let's say, more safe, and it is light, you know. So it's hydrogen in combination with electric propulsion in this moment, for, let's say, 20 up to 40 seat passengers in a range of 10 years, it's feasible, and the only combination we see in this moment.
So a lot of things to unpack there. First of all, a hybrid hydrogen and electric aeroplane. So you would use the battery power for takeoff. Is that the plan?
Well, mostly not. If the development of hydrogen fuel cells will go so fast that it is going now. I don't know if the audience has followed our project 4 years ago with some other partners. We flew the 4-seat hydrogen aircraft in Stuttgart. Mm-hmm. And now we did in the project Mahepa the same in November in Maribor in Slovenia. The propulsion was 4 to 5 times in these 4 years improved. So the improvement of hydrogen fuel cells is much faster than on batteries. You know. Right. That's why we see a good let's say progress in hydrogen.
What about solar? Is solar is there potential for solar power? I mean, you've got all that wing space you could lay your cells out on.
Well, you know, at least for another few millions of years, I believe, we will receive on the Earth 1 kilowatt of solar energy per square meter. That's reality.
Right.
Even if you have 100% efficient cells, more than 1 kilowatt per square meter you can have. So if the surface of the aircraft is 10 meters, you can have 10 kilowatts. But as the efficiency of the cells is maybe 30%, you have 3 kilowatts. And as you are not always vertical to the rays, you must calculate a real, let's say, efficiency of the surface about 1 to 3 kilowatts. And right. This is not enough to fly. You need a big surface.
And how many kilowatts do you need?
Yeah, our Velis Electro or Alpha Electro fly with 18 to 19 kilowatt to maintain 2 people in the air.
Right. So basically what you're saying is for a solar airplane to work, it's going to have enormous wings.
Enormous wings. What is a destructive factor for speed or for controllability in bad weather conditions, you know? So it's good for proof of concept, yes, but to produce an electric solar aircraft in serial production, which can be used in commercial cases or to do a business case on it, it's not possible.
Right. So the second half of what you said a few minutes ago, and we've got a lot of questions and a lot of comments, and I'm really grateful to everyone for them on these points. But before we get to that, you said something I found totally fascinating, which was that you think a 19, 20, even up to 40-seat mini aircraft, well, mini liner, if you like. Did I hear you right in saying by 2030?
Yes.
10 years, 10 years from now.
Yes, Pipistrel is working on so-called mini liner or micro feeder, which is very efficient 19-seat aircraft that we fit in Part 23. And I believe will be in the air before 2028, and then of course it's a matter of certification, how fast we will be to do it parallelly. But we are not the only one, also others are working on this, and that's fine, because more competitors will have faster, we will reach the final goal. We will follow the European Green Deal guidelines and what I see as the only way to go forward also after 2030. This can really start a real contribution to save the atmosphere or to make the atmosphere cleaner. But it is possible. All our propulsions, which are now EASA type certified, are designed in a way that they are scalable for this future use of a bigger needed power.
And now, as you say, Airbus is working on a hydro aeroplane with the unfortunate name of Zero-E or some awful thing. I hope by 2030 they've thought of a good name for it. But in the meantime, there's an enormous amount of money being poured into sustainable aviation fuels, sort of using existing engines, but slightly better or slightly less awful fuel. Do you think sustainable aviation fuel is a a road we should go down as an interim measure, or should we just focus all of our energies on electric and electric propulsion?
No, of course, there are different ways how to reach the same goal. Of course, also you see the car industry cannot go over the night to a cleaner or electric propulsion. We must work on cleaner existing engines to maintain the existing let's say level of transport we need traveling between continents and all this. I know that also big players are working to make the propulsions more efficient with less emissions. But on the other side, to match somewhere with the complete emission-free aviation, not only climate neutral, we must think about new technologies, and we must think also about new concepts. Because, you know, in this moment, the aviation, as it is now, passenger aviation, is made in a not clever way. We ask the passengers to go to the airports. It should be opposite, you know. The airport must come to you as close as your place. So we must design the aircraft which need as less as possible space to operate, to take off and landing. We are destroying the best agriculture land for big airports. You know, we must change this. And if we have, we already have everywhere a net of small airports where a 19-seat short-take aircraft can land. Of course, we must change the rules, because in this moment it's not possible to make commercial activity on such airports. But if this change, you can do all passenger checks, all security checks in a small airport, and you don't need anymore to spend 1 hour car drive to reach the small airport and then be there 1 hour before the takeoff, and then with 100 or 200 passenger aircraft fly from Ljubljana, for example, to Frankfurt. You can go from the small, maybe also grass airfield, direct into the international terminal.
You're ahead of me. I was going to ask you.
This can shorter for hours your trip, you know.
Yeah, well, indeed. And I was going to ask you that very question, which is, there's a small, exactly as you say, there is what ICAO would call an aerodrome close to my house, but it has a grass strip. Do you think your 20-seater aeroplane will be able to operate on a grass strip?
It is already designed in this way. Yes,
right.
But the rules must be changed, because in this moment it's not possible to operate as a passenger airport with these smaller airstrips. This is
right.
one of the challenges we are facing to make the aviation more efficient, to make the aviation modern, or to change the concept, which is now wrong, because also the rules must follow all our efforts, you know. And this is one of the changes which are needed.
Right. No, and then indeed one of the other questions on this is on a related point, which is that for the economics of a small electric powered aircraft to work, it's going to need to do a lot of rotations, because it's going to need a lot of passengers and what have you. And if you're flying into big airports, they're often slot constrained. Do you think, for example, would it be a good move from a low emissions perspective if we're going to be changing the rules, we may as well change this one as well. Do you think it's a good idea to change the rules so that an electric aeroplane, for example, is exempt from the slot rules, things like that? Would that be a good way to encourage this?
Well, the incentives are always a good motivation or driving factor towards new technologies, new concepts. You have followed probably the case in Scandinavia, Norway. Why they have more electric cars than in California? Because for some years they canceled the complete taxes on them, VAT, nothing. And this can be a motivation also in aviation industry, you know, that let's say you don't compare only the price of the electric aircraft towards piston engine aircraft, but you compare all the costs together First of all, if they will be tomorrow or somewhere they are already in Germany, penalties for the noise. If your aircraft is producing more noise, you pay higher taxes for landing. If will be penalties to produce the emissions, all this will help to change the attitude we have now to a cleaner and let's say sustainable aviation. I just read from or understood from one of my customer who just placed the order that Sweden made recently a rule that for all electric aircraft they will offer 80%, pay attention, 80% of subsidies if they demonstrate that the complete chain is made in the correct way. So also electricity produced by sustainable from sustainable sources, everything, you know. So that's the correct way, because if we are going in one direction and we penalize on the other side, then we do nothing, you know. All the system must be made in a way that we go towards the correct goal.
So we need, but your point is we shouldn't be punishing, we should be incentivizing.
Yeah, incentivize, yeah. Not by, well, you know, punishing is a way of negative incentivize. So it's always motivation behind, or it's negative or it's positive. Yes.
Right.
But the noise, I'm quite sure the noise will be one of the leading motivators. Also, we see from our orders, you know, we are receiving for electric trainer. Most of the customers are coming to us because of having problems in school or in club because of noise.
Right. So is your how many aircraft do you make a year?
We are producing one aircraft per working day, more or less, which in Europe means that this is about 220, 230 aircraft per year. But now, of course, I must say that aviation, besides tourism, suffered the most COVID. But I am happy to say that last year, 2020, was the most successful in the 32 years history of Pipistrel. We never received so many orders, and it was the first. Yeah, and it was the first year. I estimated that this will happen in 2022, but it was in the same year we got the type certification of the electric aircraft, that we have received more orders for electric aircraft than for piston engine aircraft, you know.
Wow.
And the forecast we have now for 2021, that we will produce more than 200 electric aircraft, and we are already now preparing the second shift that we will be able to do this, because in December we got from only one customer in France 50 orders. It's amazing how big potential has electric quiet aviation in this moment.
So is that the world's largest flight training school, a customer that wants 50 aircraft?
Yes, there is a company who recognize the reality that the schools has potential, has students, but they don't have assets maybe to take loans, and they don't have enough resources to buy the aircraft. So this customer is offering to schools and the clubs the renting of the electric aircraft.
So it's a leasing company.
Yeah, and also a French Aero Club, French Pilot Association are included in this. It's a large project, but this will be copied now also in Scandinavia. So yeah, we are very happy that our vision and strategy going with all the money we have and we don't have in this direction was correct.
Wow. So when you deliver the aircraft to France, are you going to fly them over, or are you going to put them on a truck?
The fuel-powered aircraft we mostly fly, but of course electric aircraft with 45 minutes of endurance cannot be flown. But yes, would be possible, because I don't know if you followed this achievement from a Swiss team who made 7 world records with electric aircraft flying from Switzerland to North Sea. It is possible, but make no sense. We have dedicated trailers, or by truck we transport the aircraft by ground, of course.
Is the battery aircraft heavier than the piston aircraft?
The maximum takeoff weight is the same.
Right.
What is the difference is that with the fuel we have in the wings for long distance, we replace the weight with the batteries and the difference between the engines, because the electric engine is much lighter than the fuel one. So basically we still have the same payload, so two people on board, but the difference is, let's say, that we carry all the fuel all the time together, because the batteries you cannot let's say reduce the weight when are empty. So it's like to fly fuel powered aircraft all time with the full fuel. That's the difference.
Right. So I'd like to pick you up on something, come back to something else you said. I'm really interested in your comment that we need to shift the airport to us rather than have us drive for an hour to get to the airport, because that's also the vision of the urban aerial mobility industry as well, of course. So do you see your aircraft being pilotless at any time?
Well, we are already working on this. You know, every day bigger portion of our portfolio is or optionally piloted or unmanned. Also, the flying truck we are now developing, the Nuva, which will transport 300 kilos a few hundred kilometers far. It's a totally automatic flight. It's unmanned. Also, we just finished the project with one organization, a charity organization, Wings for Aid, to drop the boxes after the catastrophes. This is all unmanned, you know.
Unmanned, right?
Yes, it's all unmanned, and I also see like a logic development that in future the aviation will be completely unmanned. Why? Because first of all, will be more traffic in the air. In this moment, we have, not in COVID time, but in normal time, we have about 3,700 to 4,000 passenger aircraft in the air at the same time. The estimate also from Uber and the others is that in 10 or 15 years, we will have 80,000 flying air taxis in the air all the time, you know. And combining all this, following all this, it's simply not possible with human brain. It also the airspace must be automatic, not only the aircraft. So the space, the complete ecosystem will go on the higher level. We are flying now in corridors. Later, the corridors will be made during the flight by vehicle by themselves, you know. And also tomorrow, I'm quite sure the pilot, like professional, let's say, license, will disappear. We will have operators which will operate all this system, you know. That's why I really motivate all the audience, if they are younger and if they have children, you know, to go with them to the airport, to take the photo with the aircraft, with the wings and with pilots, because it will happen soon that the pilots, the captains will be like in zoo, you know. This was time ago a reality. Nowadays it's not anymore, and the wings must disappear, because if we like to bring the airport to the passenger, we must have everything capable for vertical takeoff and landing. And also our development is going in this direction, you know. So electric clean propulsion, vertical takeoff and landing, these are mandatory, let's say, basis to make tomorrow's aviation affordable, clean, quiet, and user-friendly.
Right. So with your what you called your flying truck, your 300 kilo load, I think it's really interesting that FedEx has bought a fleet of Cessna 2.8s, which it intends to make unmanned, to effectively do exactly what you were talking about a few minutes ago, I believe, to fly
It's not
cargo.
exactly the same.
Sorry?
It's not exactly the same because Cessna need runway. We don't need runway.
Right, but in the short term, I accept that point. But in the short term, it can fly to those very small airports.
Yeah.
So if you like, in terms of delivery for a FedEx or whatever, it's not the last mile, but it's the second last mile that it can do. And I see that as sort of an interim step. But I'm also really interested that you say, for example, the aid deliveries that you're doing, by definition, they must be beyond visual line of sight. So are you getting approvals for that, or are you doing it on an aid exception or something?
With, the authorities, thanks God, finally understand, especially ASA last years, that the driving industry must be followed with the rules. And the project to make the rules, so-called SORA, is the correct step in this way, that you start first using the unmanned vehicles over non-populated areas. You earn the experience, and then you get, let's say, the bonus to go in more populated areas. But already now, I can tell you why we switched. Not we switched, but we went parallelly in development of NUVA, cargo drone, not only the flying taxi. We were chosen by Uber, like one of the four companies developing this. But we have seen that the rules for the implementation of this will be later than it was estimated. But to use the same vehicle, the same structure for cargo in non-populated area, you can deploy this much faster. Imagine that only Indonesia has 15,000 islands where less than 100 people live. And if you like to order a washing machine or a refrigerator, you have no ferries, no helicopter, no runway. Helicopter is too expensive. So, and this over the sea can be done tomorrow. The authorities already accept this, or I don't know, small villages somewhere in North Canada, or to bring spare parts to oil platforms. All this can be done immediately, but we need vertical takeoff capability. And we need fast, let's say, cruise speed, what helicopter don't offer. That's why we are 10 times cheaper than helicopter with electric.
But your vertical takeoff must still use rotors.
Yes, but only for a short time. You need rotors only for land and to take off, and then you need wings still. Yeah.
Right. So then you'll still have wings, or you'll have tilt.
At the moment, yes.
Yeah, right.
But we are going in the direction that tomorrow will be smaller.
Tomorrow, I'm really fascinated. How do I say this politely? You've been in aviation for a very long time, haven't we all? I have as well. But you sound like Elon Musk. What motivates you to do this? How did you start on this part of this journey?
Well, I will tell you in this way. Everybody from the audience, I believe, has seen the photo of our Earth from the space. And you see, if you see this picture, you will see a tiny blue belt around the Earth. That's our atmosphere. People can live months without the food, weeks without the water, but only a few seconds without the air. So if you go, I'm traveling a lot, we are selling 97 countries. Wow. If you go to Delhi, if you go to Shanghai, if you go in Mexico City, you will not see a clean sky anymore. Mask was a must also before COVID, we must do something that we clean the atmosphere. I know that aviation is not the biggest polluter, but it's one of the biggest contributors to the pollution. So everybody who can do something, who has the knowledge, it's his duty to do this. And that's our motivation. That's our motivation, that we are changing the aviation towards a cleaner one, and making the type certified aircraft and certifying the first electric engine. Pipistrel demonstrate that electric engine and electric aircraft is the same, has the same safety like piston engine one, because the type certification basis are the same. And this is opening now the door to all aviation community, that they have a proof that we can go in this direction. This is the biggest contribution of Pipistrel, proving that electric propulsion is reality. There are only 3 milestones in aviation. You know, the first piston engine aircraft was type certified in 1927. Then it was jet engine aircraft type certified in 1953. And from 1953 until 2020 was no milestone, a real milestone in aviation, when Pipistrel Velis Electro was type certified. And now we must go forward. That's the door is open now. I really welcome all the competitors to go in this direction, that we will finally make some real results in cleaning the aviation, the atmosphere.
So do you think at the moment in this COVID world, Rolls-Royce, for example, has delayed the development of its new engine, and it said the reason why it's delayed the development is there's no new airframe to which it could be attached. And I just wonder if you think that with the COVID problem for all of aviation, do you think there's still a hunger in the airline industry for the sort of work you're doing?
Well, I believe that one should not take singular indicators and derive the future from them. The named technology is specific, and I cannot comment on the technological challenges associated with its development, deployment. But it is, however, very clear that even the airliners that are entering today will need to have their engines replaced several times during their life cycles for regular wear or tear. So this alone should be seen a big opportunity for the engine makers to deploy engine technology which is compatible with the low carbon fuels, and it's as an interim step towards the zero emission flight. COVID-19 is an unpredicted crisis, and while the impact has been hard, the decarbonization of aviation is a multi-decade challenge. You know, it's not only 2 years challenge, and this should not be defined by what is happening in 1 year. COVID case, it's hard, but it's too short that should, let's say, have an impact in a long-term aviation development.
Right. So one last question before we finish, because we're almost out of time. It's gone very quickly. Is I'm really fascinated that you're doing this on your own. Your company's more than 30 years old. You've been at the cutting edge of all of this for a very long time in your own right. I mean, normally what we do in Europe is we create a big European project and we get European funding, whereas you're doing it on your own bat with your own financing. Do you think that's a better way to go forward?
Well, I'm convinced, and also European Commission give me right that also SMEs can contribute to big changes. They can contribute to a revolutionary changes, and can have a big impact or big contribute to a later stages of development. It is much easier to develop something and to prove the concept on smaller scale than on big scale. And SMEs are much more flexible. SMEs are capable to do a lot of things with much less money than bigger players, but the bigger players can take profit of all this, you know, and we must combine all this ecosystem to go forward. I'm quite sure that the capabilities we have like SMEs, we cannot afford to design immediately 200-seat aircraft. But I believe the 20-seat is reachable, you know, with some partnerships. And this is already a serious regional aviation. Of course, if you like to transport 60 people, you will make 3 flights, but this can have a big contribute to the passengers, because they will have 3 possibilities during the day when to fly. Not only one flight in the morning, but it will be one in the morning, one then at noon, and one in the evening, you know. Also, you must see the story, all the benefits also of new concept.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no question that what you are pushing forward is some amazing new concepts and some amazingly interesting cutting edge technology. My very, very last question, just back to your point about hydrogen aeroplanes, a question that was put is, you mentioned that hydrogen, the emission from the hydrogen aircraft is going to be water. What do you do with the water? Do you emit it into the air, or do you carry it home?
Yes, it's sublimated. It's disappear in the air. It's steam, you know. So you don't see it. Even you don't see a line after the aircraft. It's disappearing during the process. You don't see this. It's only a small moisture you get in the air, which will not contribute to let's say more water in the air, or make clouds or something else.
I think there's a bit of work still needs to go in that little bit, I'm afraid. But I mean, coming from Australia, I think the more moisture in the air, the better. But I do realise water is also a greenhouse gas, or steam is a greenhouse gas. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you agree with me that this has been absolutely inspiring. I almost want to go out and design my own aircraft myself now. All I have to do now is learn how to be a glider pilot, so that I can start on the amazing path that Ivo has gone along and has gone through. On behalf of you all, I'd very much like to thank Ivo for his time today, Pipistrel for all the work that it's doing, remarkable work that it's doing in Europe, and to wish you all a very good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. And hope to see you again very soon on our next Blue Sky Talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And don't remember, we have only one atmosphere.
Only one atmosphere. We've got to look after it, indeed. Please take the time to fill out the poll that has just come up on the screen. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ivo.
Thank you. Bye. Okay.
Stand by.